You think balance is your ally? You merely adopted the balance. I was born in it, molded by it. I didn't win a 1v1 until I was already a man. Oh yes, I was wondering what would break first, your production or your tier 3 units? You don't fear death, you welcome it. Your punishment must be more severe.
Hello everyone, Sigmar here, though I know that nobody cared who I was until I put on the mask. This is the last video in this series. This time I'm going to discuss recent Keiron changes, and oh boy did the race change a lot, wow! Before I begin my rant, thank you all for your support, please subscribe if you like the content and leave a comment if you have any questions. Now on to the Keiron. First of all, I just want to say that Keiron had it coming, and most of the changes the race received are well deserved. Keiron felt really broken before the patch, and I was one of the people who used to abuse it in training sessions. Shame on me, I guess. The root of the problem was the production mechanic for the Keiron. As a reminder, Keiron buildings generate charges, which can then be used to basically shape in units just like Protoss players warp their units in. Most buildings can accumulate 2 charges at once, with Edifice, a gateway or barracks equivalent, being able to accumulate 3 charges, and Pinnacle buildings for highest tech units being able to only store 1 charge. So basically, multiple units were able to be summoned to the battlefield with minimal number of production structures whenever the need arose, and not be summoned when nothing worrying was happening. This meant that Keiron players were able to cut corners and tech up or expand without the need of building a lot of, if any, units, and they didn't lose any production cycles because the charges were accumulating. At the same time, other races had to play defensively, because even 3 or 4 production structures could suggest Keiron players going for an aggressive push strategy, while in reality Keiron was taking a fast third without any units. The same basic setup for Keiron could be both an aggressive build or an economic one, not to mention that the charges were actually generated very fast, and it often felt like Keiron was able to outproduce both Genetron and Zaid, forcing them into defense and to delay their third bases. With that explained, let's see how Keiron was changed and if the nerf hammer has struck too hard or just right. First of all, the most important of changes. All Keiron buildings generate charges slower as they accrue charges. The second charge is generated at 66% speed and the third at 33%. This is huge! Now there is a real downside to not using up your charges fast. Accumulating charges now make the production structures a lot less efficient, and that alone might be enough to take a lot of flexibility from the Keiron. Now cutting corners is a double-edged sword, because if you don't spend your charges and go for fast tech or expansion, additional charges are going to be delayed and you won't be able to quickly shape in an actual army. Then we have some related building changes. Let's start with the Edifice. Its mineral cost got decreased to 200 from 225, supply it provides was reduced from 8 to 6, which checks out because tube supply is worth 25 minerals in StarCraft 2. Now, the building is still a bargain, because you pay 75 minerals for 6 supply and then you have a barracks for like 125, but I guess it is cheaper because it has a very limited selection of only 2 most basic units Keiron has access to. Build time was reduced by 3 seconds, but that's pretty non-consequential. The biggest change is that the unit charge time was increased by whole 5 seconds, from 17 to 22, which means it was increased by around 30%. I think this is one of the 2 instances where the nerf was maybe a bit too harsh. This change majorly hits Keiron's ability to get an army early on, and it really changes a lot throughout the game. With efficient play you basically lose like 4 units every 5 minutes of play per edifice now, compared to the state of the race before the patch. Similar changes were introduced to the Sanctum. Its cost was also decreased by 25, and it also provides 2 less supply now. Unfortunately for the Keiron, Sanctum's unit charge time was also increased from 29 to 40, an increase of 38%. I feel like Sanctum units were essential to Keiron's early defenses, with Pulsars acting as an anti-swarm unit and Subjectors being all around good, and also having a great anti-air weapon. This means that Keiron players probably have to adjust and build more production structures early on just to stay safe. From my limited experience, for a lot of matchups the situation turned 180 degrees and Keiron no longer has the initiative on the map early on. It seems like now Keiron is the one on the defense, with Genetron being able to be aggressive with early Spitfire attacks and Zaid being able to put pressure on Keiron with Zaidlings and Roamers. Then we have some changes to other production structures for Keiron, with the trend being the unit charge time being increased slightly, mostly to round them up to 5. Conduit had the unit charge time increased by 4 seconds, Elysium by 4, Foundry by 3, Atrium by 2 and Empyrean by 3. These are a lot less consequential to the race than the Edifice and Sanctum changes, but still a nerf to the race. There is a silver lining though, because some tech requirements for buildings were lowered and now Conduit can be built right after an edifice, and it no longer costs any gas. The unit it produces, Echoes and Fuses, of course still cost gas, but I think you can now go for edifice, Conduit and gas formulator afterwards and you won't be in a bad spot. I think Keiron is now the fastest race to obtain air units other than Zerg's Overlords, which I think will allow for an extremely fast scouting and maybe some other shenanigans like Echoes hunting for enemy Overlords very early in the game. Empyrean also had its requirements lowered and now you can build it right after Sanctum. Chiron's main building, the Citadel, now provides 2 more supply when charged, which perhaps helps with build order problems that arose when edifices' supply provided was decreased. Starting energy after charging was also increased from 25 to 50. Last building that got changed was the Oculus, a watchtower for Keiron. It got cheaper by 25 gas and its vision range got slightly increased. Its reveal ability has almost half its previous cooldown now, but the most important change is that the Oculus can now see up cliffs, meaning that no sneaky overlord will be able to spy on your natural now if you build an Oculus now. On to the units! No idea if Volts were really overperforming, but their weapon speed got decreased by around 4%. Can't really comment here, I don't know if this changes anything really. Pulsar's dampener ability got redesigned and it is now autocast on receiving splash damage, which is a great quality of life change. At the same time, the ability's duration got reduced by half a second, its cooldown got decreased from 14 to 10 seconds, and the amount of damage reduced was, well, reduced from 75 to 66%. You do the math now. Meridians got bigger and they no longer get energy from attacking non-biological targets, which is fair considering how good their convergence spell is against mech units already. They also shoot slightly faster. Subjector's anti-ground weapon got changed and it now shoots faster but deals less damage, but the new values provide roughly the same DPS, so it was more of a unit interaction change. Subjectors now need 1 more shoot to kill an unshielded marine, a zergling, a vault, so as you can see, while the DPS of the unit stayed the same, Subjector now needs more shots to kill small basic units, which is huge in the early game and yet another reason why Chiron will no longer dominate early phases of the game. Now let's talk about Chiron's big guns. The Titan got its life armor reduced to 3 from 4, and oh boy, I didn't even know it was so tanky. Its attack no longer slows its targets down, which makes sense because it made most units unable to escape once the Titan started attacking them, and it didn't feel fun and there was no counterplay. In exchange, the attack now debuffs the target's attack speed even more. Paragon, the capital ship of the Chiron fleet, also got its armor reduced, which I also consider a good change because this stuff was extremely durable and I struggled to deal with them. Paragon's ability, the infamous Emissary Orb, now charges up longer by more than a second and also costs more energy, meaning that a full energy Paragon can no longer cast 2 of these bad boys during one fight, which is probably for the good. As you can see, Chiron got massively nerfed and didn't really get a lot in return. While the nerfs are deserved, I think maybe they went too far and some of them will have to be tuned down in the future. In my personal ranking, Chiron has fallen from its throne and now is the least powerful of the 3 Scion races. At the time of this recording, the second Scion tournament for this year hasn't yet started, so I cannot use the results that it will have as a source of data. So it's all based on my analysis and limited amounts of training games I had with Carneus, which I want to give a shout out to for being awesome. That's all from me, I hope you liked this series, and if you want more videos of this kind, please let us know. Shout out to Zaxveng that will be editing this video, and I hope to see you guys soon. Cheers!
What? Keiron can still win games? Impossible!